This is the mysterious third period of time. This has always been a mystery to me up to about a year ago, and then I finally figured out what must have happened. So, because there was plants on the earth before the sun was a star, and with no sun, you had plants growing on the earth. So, stick around, and I'll tell you how it happened. But first, we got to go through all these other illustrations, and this is how all the planets. When you got a disk in rotation, and if it's not a solid disk, if it's not made out of metal or something or wood, then you're going to have slip points. This was a liquid disk. It was mostly seawater, so you got slip points ever so far apart where the different races move at different speeds. So wherever you got a slip point, there's going to be an eddy current. So if you look at the magnifying glass real close, you'll see an eddy current where Uranus was trying to form, or Uranus, whichever way you want to pronounce it. And so that's how the planets form, was within these slip points and two disks moving, two rings moving at different speeds. It makes an eddy current. So that started them off. Before we go any further, I'd like to throw in a timeline to show you how the days were lined up and how long they were, and all such stuff as that. It's pretty interesting. Now, during the Earth's evolution, it formed from four individual rings around the Sun, and each ring was different elements. The first ring was uranium, because the heavier the element, the closer to the Sun the rings were. So uranium was the heaviest, so it was the first ring. And it formed a craton of Ur, which is a little small ball about 1/3 the size of the moon. And this surface can still be found in India, Southeast Africa, and Western Australia. And that surface is 4.5 billion years old. Now, why is it older than the rest of the cratons? Because it was the only craton that was here at that time. That was the whole surface of the Earth during that period. Now, the next ring was made of thorium, bismuth, lead, all the heavy elements, heavier than uranium, lighter than uranium, but heavy elements. And all these elements are highly good shields against radioactivity, especially lead. And they don't give off much radiation themselves, so that makes them a perfect shield against radiation. And that kept the plants, when the plants formed on the Earth, it kept the seed from being deformed by radiation. And this is called the craton of Antarctica. And it's all the land up around the North Pole from Canada and Russia. The next ring that the Earth formed from was made of iron, and it formed the the core of the Earth, the outer core, the iron core. And it's found, the surface of it is found in southeastern South America and southwestern South Africa. The surface area for this ring is about 2 billion years old, and the ring before that, I forgot to tell you the age of the surface area, it was about 2.5 billion years old. Now, this last ring was what formed the mantle of the Earth, and the mantle is made from lighter elements. So this ring was a real thick ring, and so it took in the craton of Baltica up around the Baltic Sea. Now, this craton is not too old. It's about 600 million years old is all it is, and it formed real fast. It formed really fast and made the Earth grow from the size of 1/3 the size until about what it is present day size. This illustration is mostly to show that the lighter elements settled on the outside of the rings, on the surface of the rings, above and below the ring. And this is the lighter elements that form these cratons. Was on the outer surface, and the elements that form the Earth on the inside was on the inside, sandwiched in between these lighter elements. This illustration shows the Earth when it first started to evolve from the rings, and this is This is the oldest part of the Earth, and it formed from the ring of uranium. This surface of the Earth is the cratons of the oldest part of the Earth. And if you was to take all these surfaces and put them together and make a smaller ball, the ball would be about the size of the inner core of the Earth, and that's exactly what it was. I've heard some people say, now, how could these places be any older than the rest of the Earth? Well, I'll tell you why, because they were the only surface here on the Earth at that time. Then the Earth collected its next ring, which was made of thorium, bismuth, and lead. All three of these elements are good radiation shields. So when plants did come on the Earth, the seed was not deformed by radiation. The craton for these rings were found up around the Arctic Ocean, northern Canada, northern Russia, and this craton is 2.5 billion years old. How could plants grow on the Earth without the sun? Some say it would be too cold. No plants grow without the sun. Besides, you need light for plants to grow. As far as heat goes, the Earth was like a little nuclear reactor. It had a uranium core and the heavy elements around it, and that caused the reaction and give off heat. As far as the light goes, the ring and the Earth were moving at two different speeds, and there was a static charge built up between them. The rings were 350 million miles around the sun, and the Earth was rotating on its axis, and so that was two different speeds and caused a static charge, which released lightning in the form of an arc. To get a better idea, just look at the rings of Saturn, and the Saturn has the same thing happening with lightning and electrical charges. NASA measured 30,000 to 80,000 electron volts between one of the moons and Saturn. The time frame we were just talking about was at the craton of Atlantica. That's the eastern coast of South America and the western coast of South Africa. And I just happened to be lucky enough to get to talk to one of the guys, the guy that surveyed this at Tampa Shipyard. Their research vessel come in for repairs, and I got a chance to meet with him. The next ring that the Earth collected was made of iron, and that made the outer core of the Earth. The small Earth's crust was real thin at that time, and it was sitting on an iron ore foundation with no mantle. This is a cutaway of the Earth showing the interior of the Earth during this period, and all the different elements that it was formed from, and the crust also. This is along about the time frame, I think, when the Earth had plants growing before the sun was a star. And the Earth had an inner core that gave off heat, and it also had an arc from the rings to the Earth from static charges from two different speeds, and the Earth was rotating at the same time, moving at 43,000 miles an hour, and the rings were a constant loop around the sun. And the distance for the rings around the sun was about 350 million miles from start to finish. It would be hard to tell the exact conditions. Nobody knows during that time frame, but it's enough there to believe that they were plants on the Earth, and it's not that big of a mystery anymore. So this ends third period of time and we'll move on to the fourth period.